Good morning. My name is Brandon, and I'm an alcoholic and addict in recovery. And today I read this section from Living Sober regarding the phrase, first things first. So, first things first is a good phrase to help us keep organized, keep our priorities straight, both in recovery and in regular life. And in recovery, the argument presented here is that your first thing is to stay sober, because without staying sober, everything else falls apart. Very simple concept, very simple idea that if we don't stay sober, then nothing else is going to turn out the way that we hope that it will. So let's read some about what they say here. Above all other concerns, we must remember that we cannot drink. Not drinking is the first order of business for us, anywhere, anytime, under any circumstances. This is strictly a matter of survival for us. And I want to pause there because I think it's an important idea for us to remember that staying sober is not about a lifestyle choice. It's not about something that makes things easier for us or other people. It's not about trying to stay out of trouble. It's about survival. Staying sober is as critical for people in recovery as eating your next meal, as getting enough water in your body, as moving, as breathing. And we have to get this idea into our heads that our survival depends on sobriety. Because if we do not stay sober, we will not survive as long, more than likely, as long as we would have otherwise. Much more opportunity for an early death finds us if we continue to use either drugs or alcohol in any way, shape, or form. Just the fact of the matter. It's important to keep that in mind, because the question often comes up, well, how do I order things in my life? How do I prioritize things in my life? Now I'm sober, I'm trying to take care of family and friends and my job, and I'm trying to do this as well as possible. I've got all these expectations. Where does my sobriety fit into this? And so what they say about that is, in practical day-to-day matters, that means we must take whatever steps are necessary at whatever inconvenience not to drink. Some have asked us, does this mean you rank sobriety ahead of family, job, and the opinion of friends? When we view alcoholism as the life or death matter it is, the answer is plain. If we do not save our health, our lives, then certainly we will have no family, no job, and no friends. If we value family, job, and friends, we must first save our own lives in order to cherish all three. Now, we have to be careful here. This does not mean we ignore obligations to family, friends, our job at the expense of those things, that we ignore obligations to go engage in recovery related work. You can't just skip work every day to go to meetings because that feels better and that helps your sobriety. You've got to find a balance and be able to still do the things you need to do to live in order to live. So, as with anything, we can't take this to the extreme where we say, well, I'm going to forget about everything else in my life and just focus on my sobriety. That's not what we're saying here. What we're saying here is that sobriety has to be number one in terms of how we decide what to do in the day-to-day choices that we make, so that everything else will fall into place the way that it should, and so that we can dedicate ourselves to our job, love the people that love us, and take care of them and help them when they need it. That's the goal. The goal is not to ignore those things and focus solely on sobriety. The goal is to enhance our sobriety so that we can do those things. So the other place where the slogan "first things first" comes in handy is when we get overwhelmed by life. In my addiction, I got overwhelmed all the time by life, by job, especially. I got overwhelmed at work. And at home too, I have this endless to-do list of things that I needed to get done, and I had no idea where to even start. And the phrase first things first helps us keep things ordered a little bit. So I'm going to read a little bit about what they say regarding first things first and how to use this slogan in day-to-day life. We use the same slogan in ordering our newfound sober time. We try planning the day's activities, arranging our tasks in order of importance, and never making the schedule too tight. Learning not to drink is facilitated, we have discovered, by introducing some order into the day, but being realistic and keeping our plan flexible. So, a lot of times I would get overwhelmed and still do get overwhelmed by the amount of to do things on my to do list. And what I need to keep in mind and need to do a better job of is just realizing that I've got to figure out what's the priority, do that next, and then move on to the next priority, and then not worry as much about whether it all gets done, because guess what? It's not all ever going to get done. There's always, and I prove this to myself time and time again, there's always more you can add to that list. You'll never get done. So the art of finding balance in both being productive and being flexible is just finding peace in doing the next most important thing and then moving on to the next one, but also maintaining some flexibility. So if things change, if circumstances change, and you have to reprioritize things, it doesn't cause you stress and it doesn't bother you or cause you anxiety. And that's where I need to do some work, particularly. So, first things first is an idea that not only helps us figure out where sobriety and recovery belong in our lives, but also helps us to deal with overall prioritizing in our lives with the things that normally might overwhelm us, especially if we're coming into recovery, if we're in early recovery, and trying to figure out how to get it all done. It's good to remember you're never going to be able to get it all done, and so you've got to remember first things first. Do whatever's most important first, then move on to the next one. And as long as you're also remembering that other slogan of do the right thing next, it's the most important thing is what's the next right thing to do. Just keep that in mind, pair these two together, and you'll have no problem finding a to-do list, a list of things that you have to accomplish that makes sense with your schedule, your lifestyle, and most importantly, with keeping you sober another day. Hope to see you back here tomorrow. Hope you have a great day today.